This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports.
The ball is spotted. The kick is away. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's picked up by the Eagles. Running with it is Davis. 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown! Game over! Jordan Davis!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again! Have you ever seen anything like this?
Do you believe in miracles?
The Rams are standing silent. They can't believe what just happened to them.
That's how it sounded on WIP Sports Radio in Philly yesterday as the Eagles handed the Rams. And more importantly for our purposes, Rams plus 3.5 bettors, hands down the worst beat of the NFL season so far, and maybe put it in the Hall of Fame. That's how we welcome you in to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We're live in downtown Las Vegas at Circa Resort and Casino like we are each and every day, holding it down for the next 2 hours. And JVT, we were on the air yesterday for Countdown to Kickoff and Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN at Circa, and I gotta own up to it. I said the witching hour, like late third quarter, early fourth quarter, is like doesn't look like the witching hour is going to be witching very much. These games are starting to slow down a little bit. Boy, was I wrong.
No, I mean, look, you were not the only one. I saw a couple of people up on social media talking about how boring the morning window was, how awful it was. Now, you are somebody that I believe on this day, Monday, September 22nd, does have to answer for their crimes. You should probably repent at some point. If we could, evidence for this. Yesterday, repent? Yes, you had the gall when we were on Live Bet Sunday to utter these very words. Ooh.
The Rams and Texans are the other ones. So Rams, you feel pretty comfortable that they're going to cover the 3.5, right? It's not like in these last couple of minutes, the Eagles are going to pull away and make this. They could win the game, but do you think they can cover the game?
I'll paint you a picture. So the Eagles on this drive go down and score a touchdown. They're up 28-26. And the Rams, in desperation, trying to get back into it. And Matthew Stafford throws a pick six.
Oh.
And the Philadelphia Eagles then take a lead and cover the number.
Come on.
There's still plenty of time.
There's always time, Stormy. And I was amazed that you uttered those words and you put it into existence. And I was a little right. It was 27-26. When the Rams went downfield and then had their second field goal in 2 drives blocked and returned for a touchdown to give them a 33-26 lead. How do you plead?
I know, I apologize. I can't believe I did. We call it in my household the Gucci curse, because if you tell somebody, oh, you're Gucci, you're good, and then inevitably something bad happens in the reversal of fate, I did that to you all. I apologize. You are 100% correct. I was the Gucci curse yesterday. I know better than that. In fairness, though, you can confirm. You can confirm yesterday on the show, I short-circuited on numerous occasions.
I mean, I did have to carry the show.
You did. You did.
But
I have learned I have a threshold for sleep, right? So I know now 2.5 hours is not the proper amount. I need at least 4.
So
4 is the happy number.
I'll pull up Matt Humans. Like, that's a refreshing amount. That's a good nap. You just refresh. You get back to it. I was floating around the same time zone, and I kept going until a little bit later.
You sleep like 4 hours a night on average. That's your thing.
That's right.
So if
I took advantage of $3 shots yesterday, baby.
Hell
it
yeah.
was great. I needed them to wash away the pain after losing that Rams game, which I knew eventually was going to happen after you spoke out into the existence that, we're good, right? You're good.
Well, we have that and a lot more still to get to here on the show. And perhaps the chaos is not over yet, which leads me to our top item in today's rundown. Brian Ortega.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
Monday Night Football, we're going to put a bow on week 3 tonight. Ravens minus 4.5 against the Lions, total 53.5. Lots of love for the over. This thing, by the way, opened at 50.5, and a couple great guests to break it down. Lions beat writer Russell Brown is going to join us in 30 minutes, and then in hour 2, Josh Applebaum taking us through where the money is flowing. Plus a look ahead to week 4 as well.
Yes, I'm really excited. Can't wait to talk to Josh about what his systems say for this week, but really getting some insight from Russell on what this is going to look like for Detroit. There's some, I think, troubling numbers for Detroit's defense, specifically for 2 or 3 players. players. So we'll see if maybe the numbers reflect something that Russell has seen with this team.
We've had some interesting early line movement as well in college football. So we'll have Do You Approve this move later in the show. For example, we're getting the hook on the Oregon Ducks in Happy Valley. Might that be too generous? Meanwhile, the hook is gone for Alabama at Georgia. Mississippi State is a dog the market thinks can continue to bark. Do we? So that'll be a fun conversation later as well.
There's one that I vehemently disagree with.
That's a tease, ladies and gentlemen. And then number one, we already hit it. Rams-Eagles, all-time brutal beat. And we played the radio call off the top. The Eagles were down 26-7 in the second half, rallied to come all the way back. Philly special teams had 2 blocked field goals in the fourth quarter, including what looked to be the Rams' potential game winner that Jordan Davis batted down, scoops for a 61-yard touchdown. And again, I remind you, Rams up 19 points in the second half. They were a 3.5-point dog to win the game. So it's just, I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, so we were on the air for a vast majority of this game, and I will invoke one more time. In that first half, Sean McVay settled for 2 field goals deep in Eagles territory that I voiced in the moment. I was like, well, you know, you probably can go for this here. You're working with a little bit of house money in terms of the lead that you have. You're running the ball extremely well. You've got the Eagles on their heels. One of those 2 field goals, not the one right before the half because you didn't have that much time, but there are 2 others where they settled where that makes a really big difference when you're talking about where you're at the end of that game, what is needed, obviously all sorts of things. Should you convert one of those 4th downs, turn it into a touchdown? I was surprised by the passiveness with which Sean McVay played in that first half. And I think you could argue it came back to bite them, especially in that second half where the Eagles clearly adjusted. I also think you got to kill Shula a little bit here, the defensive coordinator, where you look at the way they were playing that defensive second half. A lot of like soft zone, dropping back, giving the Eagles plenty of space, having Hurts just kind of throw it into the soft area of the field and allowing them to get some yards after catch. I was really surprised with the way the Rams played this in certain situations, and we know what the final result was.
Especially considering, and we were following it throughout the show, how brutal offensively it was for the Eagles in the first half. They had just 17 yards passing, 33 overall. Barkley had 7 carries for 13 yards. And even to start the second half, Hurts has the sack fumble, their first offensive snap that led to Rams points. And they still weren't able to they put themselves in the position to win the game, but still weren't able to finish it. So 33-26, the final there. Eagles win. And again, somehow cover the 3.5. And while we look at it from the point of Rams plus 3.5 bettors losing, if you had Philly yesterday, go play the freaking lottery today, okay? Because you've got some sort of luck and positive vibes on you that apparently the rest of us don't have.
Very, very much so. We should also, I mean, the obvious point here, too. Those special teams you think you probably need to have a conversation about if you're Sean McVay as you move forward. 2 blocks like that. The second one that ultimately gets returned for a touchdown, did he soft leg it? It looked really weird the way that it came off of his foot. The second it went off, I was like, oh no, I think that's cooked. It was such a weird sequence on both of those plays. Unbelievable.
I gotta say too, I love me a big man touchdown though, and for the 340-pound D tackle to get up to nearly 19 miles an hour running, I mean, it's just wild. But you mentioned special teams.
It was. Can I say really quickly, actually, that was really stupid, to be honest with you. If you're really getting hardcore about it, what is to stop you? Was it Leon Lett? What's the old one where if you're trying to run the touchdown in, what happens if you punch the ball out? Something happens where it goes back. Like, there's just so many crazy things that can happen in that play. You just get down. There was no time left. There was no need for it. Come on. Nothing.
Spoken like a true Rams plus 3.5 better. Well, that game was the showstopper. We actually had 7 games on the day where game-winning scores came within the final 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. Browns, Bucks, Steelers, Chargers, 49ers, and Jags. And to your point about the special teams, 5 blocked field goal attempts on the day, tied for the most in a single week since 1990.
Yeah. And maybe it was just something in the water. These guys, I mean, it is interesting. We did see some, like you're kind of referencing, some poor kicking. We saw some poor kicking decisions. We saw the Titans settle for 2 60-yard field goals when we were on the air. We watched Kaimi Fairbairn miss a field goal in that Jags game that was ultimately, I think, somewhat consequential.
2 60-yard missed field
yes,
field goals,
that too. So
Tennessee.
it was a kind of a weird day. And I think, hey, something like that happens every once in a while. I don't know if there's some grand study to be made from it, but I will say, I mean, it did affect quite a few outcomes.
So what's the most surprising result? Is it the Browns coming back to upset the Packers late? Is it the way that the Panthers put the freaking hammer down on the Atlanta Falcons? Which, by the way, speaking of kicking, I've been seeing all of the tweets paging Younghoe Koo. Maybe we were a little bit too excited about Parker Romo off the top.
Okay, so I'll say I think the boring answer here of the most shocking results of the weekend was actually one of the blowouts.
Minnesota?
I was surprised that Minnesota put it on Cincinnati like that. And look, I liked Minnesota in that spot, but if your defense is going to play at this level, how are we not looking at this Minnesota team as a real Super Bowl contender if they can figure out what this quarterback position is going to be like? We'll have a little bit more on that in the Call Me Crazy a little bit later, but you look at how effective and how dominant they were. I mean, every opportunity. And look, a lot of things went their way. When one player has 2 recovered fumbles, one of which returned for a touchdown, and then a pick 6 as well, that is some variance that works in your favor. You held the Bengals to 3.3 yards per play, 171 total yards. That was a masterpiece defensively for Minnesota. That, to me, was really stunning to watch how quickly that got out of hand, how dominant they looked. And it's going to be lost in all of it. Carson Wentz quietly went 14 of 20 through 2 touchdowns and looked pretty damn good executing this offense.
Yeah. I know we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but to your point about the Vikings, 5 takeaways for them on the day, 2 of them from Isaiah Rodgers that were taken all the way back for 6. The 87-yard pick 6, the 66-yard fumble return. He's the first Viking with multiple defensive touchdowns in a single game ever. Let's just name September 21st in Minnesota Isaiah Rodgers Day. That dude looked like a freak of nature yesterday.
Yeah. He did. So I'm laughing because Ken checks in and says, in all fairness, JVT tried to Gucci curse all of our Seahawks Survivor entries on yesterday's show.
Well played, Ken.
That I did. Yeah, man. All's fair in love and war.
Well played, Ken. And that is, we will talk a little bit circa Survivor
that was,
reaction.
By the way, that was kind of surprising, too. The Seahawks kicked their ass. That was crazy.
Right away.
Yes.
Within seconds. I looked up at this. I'm like, 14-0 already?
I didn't even have a shot down before that thing was out of hand. That was crazy.
All right, we got to step aside our first time out of the day here on Money Moves. When we come back, though, we will continue to deep dive into what we saw yesterday, pushing it forward in JVT's notebook, and so much more to come on Money Moves, VSiN and the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, YouTube TV, iHeartRadio, any of our great local affiliates across the country. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. Remember, you can always find our content in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts, or on the VSiN Watch app. You can watch all your favorite shows on demand each and every day. He's JVT. I'm Stormy Buonantony. We're continuing to dive into what was a wild week 3 in the NFL. Of course, it's not over yet. We'll talk Monday Night Football in about 15 minutes when Russell Brown joins the program, Lions beat writer, get his thoughts on what might transpire tonight. But there's still a lot more to unpack from what we saw over the weekend. And every Monday we do a little breakdown with you and what you've written down in the notebook. I'm a little disappointed, though, not to see your physical notebook on the desk today.
I apologize. I did
we
forget
have a digital notebook today?
Yeah.
Boo.
I forgot it at home. I apologize. So we will bring it. Don't worry. It'll come back. I do have a notebook. If you just want the prop, I do have one in my backpack.
Also, for a second, I looked over there. I see your Beats headphones. And for a second, I thought it was a Baby Bell cheese.
No, not a Baby Bell. I will say really quickly, I've washed these things twice, and they still work. So
Washed? Oh, like
yeah, in the washer.
Left him in the dryer?
Shout it out.
Not the dryer, too? Just the washer?
Just the washer.
Okay.
Just the washer. All right. A couple of things in the notebook. Let's start here. I don't think this is a pretty obvious thing, but I think we have to spin this forward because they're very big favorites this coming week. Denver Broncos. Betting markets just too high in Denver. They have yet to cover a spread so far this season. They are 0-3. Depending on what you looked at with the juice threes that were popping yesterday. But as we talked about all last week and on Sunday, Chargers were laying 2.5. It was one of the games that I was talking about. Like, well, I don't know. Like, it feels a little too short. I don't know what I'm missing. I feel like it should be at least 3. And sure enough, the Chargers come back and get it done. But I wanted to spin this forward and to do 2 different topics to get your thoughts on it. First off, they're laying 7.5 on Monday night against Cincinnati. I understand what just happened to the Bengals. I don't know how you feel, though. I view Minnesota from a defensive standpoint on a much different level than I do Denver's. Denver is I think, solid and sound defense. Minnesota, the best way I can describe it is a chaotic, havoc-inducing defense that generates these very negative plays at a very high rate. And I don't think that's going to be the same thing. We have a team that has been overvalued by the betting market, in my mind, that has failed to cover a number, that is now laying 7.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. And the other part here is Bo Nix has been pretty below average through 3 games right now. And I think all of that comes together. I don't know. Am I thinking too much about this? 7.5 seems like a buy low opportunity for me with the Cincinnati Bengals against a team that has been overvalued by the betting market.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, especially because, too, when you look at the game against Minnesota for Cincinnati as well, that game got out of hand really quickly because of some of these, to your point, like explosive defensive plays. Yep. The multiple defensive touchdowns that's not something that's normal, and that happens on a regular basis. So I think that Cincinnati, especially for Jake Browning, having another full week under his belt to sort of figure things out a little bit, I think will be better. It's probably not a bet I'm going to make, but if I were to lean to a side one way or another, getting the hook on the 7, I think I would lean with Cincinnati. For this Broncos team, too, this is their second straight game now that they've lost on the last play of a game. They also, I know this game is going to be at home, but worth noting and just putting in your back pocket for later. 1-6 their last 7 road games dating back to last season. 5 of the 6 losses by 7 points or fewer. So they do not seem to be able to get out on top of those close games.
Yeah, it's a good note. We should spin that forward with this team. So just keeping that in mind, I think they're obviously a very strong teaser leg if you want to tease that down with a couple of these other games. But I think I'm trying, you know how I go. Like I'm trying to buy these buy low, sell high opportunities. It might be one for Cincinnati. All right, this is one that I just kind of wanted to point out because I don't think many people were watching. And what do we do with this? Because the market is starting to adjust. That's kind of the theme of the notes for this week. Have you seen the numbers for Houston on these totals so far this year? Houston, all 3 games, and the thing I just wrote down was Texans unders. The Houston Texans have gone under the total in all 3 of their games. They are going under by an average of 13.2 points per game. Yep. These things are absolute rock fights. They're disgusting. And yet, with the concept of buying low and selling high, we have a total in an NFL regular season game this coming weekend, in the year of our Lord 2025, of 39.5. Some spots are 38.5 for this game. Is this it? Is this the moment where we're finally going to be able to buy in and come in on a Texans over? Or are we just going to continue to ride this? Because, again, it's not like the Denver thing. Because you could rebut with me, but like, well, John, they're like you said, they're barely losing these games. They've only failed to cover by a point per game. It's not like they're really not coming close. These things are going under by nearly 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. What if we do more, instead of always game totals, what if we look to specifically like Texans team total?
Sure, yep.
Under? Like, I think that could be an approach moving forward because, to your point, under in all 3 games so far by wide margin. They're also 0-3 against the spread. They can't move the ball offensively. Mm-hmm. Like, this has been a huge struggle, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later because we have Call Me Crazy today with some overreactions from the weekend, but this offensive line is, I mean, anything we saw from C.J. Stroud rookie year is being just obliterated with this offensive line.
So C.J. Stroud, to your point, the numbers have been updated since week 3. The 30th ranked quarterback by PFF standards so far this season. Has not been playing particularly well. 6.7 yards per attempt. It's been pretty mundane. Worth noting that he's just ahead of Cam Ward. And then a little bit of trivia here. Who among the qualified quarterbacks is dead last in PFF passing grade this year? After 3 weeks.
Are you going to say C.J. Stroud?
No, I just said he's 30th.
Oh, sorry.
Who's dead last? Bo Nix.
Wow.
Yes.
That's okay. That goes back to your last point about Denver and Cincinnati.
Yep.
Jeez.
So just wanted to point that out. But yeah, these Texans games, it's just worth pointing out like how much these games have gone under. And like we talked about again yesterday, 17-10. It was a rock fight. It was ugly. And I think this is probably going to be it, but 39.5 in a game like this is absolutely nuts.
Houston has just 3 touchdowns on 32 drives.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. They're like the 2001 Patriots.
The only team that is worse is the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that's a shot at Tom Brady, by the way. He did nothing to win those first Super Bowl rings. All right, next. Cowboys opposing quarterback passing yards props. Wordy, but I think it speaks for itself. Is this secondary just going to get lit up by everybody? A quick aside, we did just get the note that it looks like CeeDee Lamb will not be available for Sunday Night Football, so we can talk about that a little bit more. But how about what we just watched for the Chicago Bears? And what did we say Sunday when we had this game and we discussed it? And my whole thing was, look, if you're the Bears and you can't get it done here offensively against a defense that has looked like this, then you've got some real problems. Well, they did it. They dropped 31 points. Caleb Williams, best game as a pro, 19 of 28, 298, 10.6 per attempt, 4 touchdowns. Bears as a whole, in terms of their offense, 385 yards. I mean, should this just be it? I mean, I'm sorry, but this is not just, hey, we're missing Deron Bland. Like, this is a bad secondary.
No, this defense is so bad. I think absolutely you should be looking at opponent passing yards and opponent team totals often.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, you let the Giants run roughshod on you. Caleb Williams goes off yesterday. This I think is really worth noting.
Well,
you talk
Russell
about
Wilson looked great last night, so I don't know. Maybe that wasn't just
amazing. Dynamite. Because you don't have everybody calling for Jackson Dart now, which, by the way, if they fall to 0-4, if they start him again and it's 0-4, is that finally when we see the shift?
That's another conversation for another day.
Okay.
That's not in my notebook.
What I'm saying about the secondary, though, explosive plays allowed.
Yeah.
They have given up 13 completions of 25-plus yards this season already, including 5 scores of 25-plus.
Yep.
That's not normal. That is a lot. 92 points allowed so far this season, the 30.7 points per game allowed, 4th most in franchise history. So it has been ugly. Want to know a fun fact?
Love fun facts.
Caleb Williams and Aaron Rodgers tied for the lead in the NFL for the most passing touchdowns this season.
Wow, look at that. and the Steelers.
Wowie.
Steelers stink.
Wowie.
Okay, let's go to college for these next ones.
Okay.
First off, this is just an observation because I was kind of looking. We talked about this. Actually, this ties into what one of my notes was last week. So if you remember, one of my notes last week was just Notre Dame overs. And sure enough, you get the Notre Dame game against Purdue, and we have 56-30.
You see the total this week, by the way?
So that's the whole point here. Betting markets make an adjustment with these bad defenses in college football. I think that's on there twice. I was so excited. I wrote it multiple times. This is something where we were talking about these overs last week. And to your point, Stormy, would you have them in front of you? Would you like to look at some of these totals?
I know the Notre Dame one is 64.5.
Notre Dame is 64.5. Tennessee is also one of the best over teams. They're 3-0, and I think to the over and by a wide margin. 62.5 is the total there.
Where's NC State? Is that a good one?
That's what I was going to say. So I was going to bring that up as like a separate note. NC State's 58. That total, by the way, got bet down, the Duke and NC State game.
Okay.
So to your point, you're hitting on all the marks I wanted to bring up here, which is if you're asking, like we brought up, hey, betting Notre Dame overs, it goes over by a wide margin last week. Now we get a really big adjustment this week for some of these teams that are 3-0 to the over. It's almost the antithesis of what we're talking about with the Texans. Mm-hmm. Texans are so bad, we're seeing this big adjustment to these unders. Now we're seeing these with these multiple 60s that are thrown out there. And there's Notre Dame, NC State, Tennessee. There's others, but just wanted to point out that we're starting to see these totals really get ticked up here.
We do have a very high total in Monday Night Football as well, which is where we will go next here on Money Moves when Russell Brown, who covers the Lions, will join the show. 4.5-point spread, and that one, what?
Can I throw out my last note really quickly? Because this is for you. I actually
have to pay bills, but what?
It'll take 5 seconds. Throw it up. This is for Stormy because I made fun of her. Oregon State covered a spread?
Yes!
Yeah.
I was going to say that because we have a college football segment a little bit later. Guess who covered the 35.5, baby?
That's right.
7-7 game in the first quarter. That was all she wrote, but it was enough. On that note, with football season being here, ladies and gentlemen, did you know football meets flavor with VSiN and Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating, built for the grill? You got to check out Omaha Steaks Smash Burgers. They're pre-smashed, premium aged beef, go from freezer to bun in just 5 minutes, unforgettable flavor. And as a VSiN exclusive, you can get 16 free smash burgers with any order of $129 or more, plus 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com/VSiN. That's omahasteaks.com/VSIN for our video audience. Look at that mouth-watering goodness. We will be right back on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
San Francisco 49ers continue to mount as we welcome you back here to Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Moments ago, Ian Rappaport reporting Nick Bosa is believed to have suffered a torn ACL yesterday. Kyle Shanahan told reporters after the game yesterday he hoped the ACL was intact. Tests revealed otherwise, so another blow to this 49er squad.
Just keep piling up. I think at some point maybe you question you're either cursed or there's something going on with your training staff. I mean, there's a rash of injuries that extend back to last year that this team continues to suffer through.
Yeah, second most games missed last year by starters in the NFL with all that they had lost. They already had some injuries coming into the season, and then the first couple games, George Kittle, Purdy, Juwan Jennings, Ben Barch up front, and now Nick Bosa. So we will address more injuries and how that affects things for a handful of teams moving forward a little bit later on. But for now, let's get into the game of the night. We do have Monday Night Football upon us. The Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens going head-to-head out there in Baltimore to help us break it all down. Russell Brown joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Lions beat writer. Find the work at Lions Wire. Fantasy pros, betting pros. You can also follow him on X at Russ NFL Draft. Welcome in, and this should be a banger tonight, and clearly one that people think will be high-scoring with these two offenses. How are you, Russ?
I'm doing well, and I'm with you guys. I think this could very well be a high-scoring matchup. I know the total started out at I believe 51.5. I think it's up to 53.5 this morning as I looked. Really can't wait to just watch the game from the football aspect, but I know from the betting perspective, there's a lot of different plays that I'm sure people are going to be in on, and I'm sure the over is certainly going to be one of them.
Well, let's start with the injury report first, Russell. A lot of notable names on this with some Q's next to their name. What does the injury report look like for Detroit, and what do we expect for their statuses heading into tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we know that, with Marcus Davenport, he is going to be out in this game. We all know that. The questionable ones are Taylor Decker, Kirby Joseph, Jack Campbell, and DJ Reed. Obviously, those are very well-known names, all starters across the board. I think they will all play. It is a little concerning that Taylor Decker practiced in full on Friday, did not practice on Saturday. I think Jack Campbell will play. I think Kirby Joseph and DJ Reed will practice. They've all had full practices. And they should get their special teams guys back, and Trevor Nowoski and Sion Vaki. So we'll see how that goes. But I think all the questionable players will be in for Detroit. As for the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, they've already announced that Kyle Van Noy will be out. Matabuke will be out as well, their defensive tackle. John Jenkins, their other defensive tackle, he may play, he may not. And we're unsure if Marlon Humphrey will play. He's been dealing with a groin injury on Baltimore's side. But I think it's going to be one of those where, yeah, there might be a name or two out, but overall there's a lot of talent on both sides of the football here.
When it comes to this Lions offense, how much do you think, with a couple of those big names out for the Ravens, that Jared Goff and company can take advantage of it offensively? Do you feel like from week 1 to week 2, with the new offensive coordinator and a lot of the changes they had to make, yes, a very different defense in Green Bay and Chicago, but do you think they've started to acclimate to where we'll start to see the true version of the Lions offense against a defense like this?
That's what it feels like, right? I mean, I want to believe that. I want to hope that as a fan, but also as a guy that gets to break them down. It was one of those where I'm like, hey, I want them to be good because it makes my job a lot more enjoyable. So I hope so. I think when you look at what they did last week, though, they used a lot of motion. I feel like between the 57 or 58 offensive plays that they ran, it felt like maybe they didn't use motion on 4 or 5 of those plays. It really felt like they were a team that was using pre-snap motion, shifts, and those types of things prior to the snap, which can always change things, and it helps Jared Goff, I think, at times determine where maybe the best side of the field to attack, whether that's in the boundary, into the field, or maybe just right up the middle. And I think that this is one of those games where they've got the playmakers, and if you look at the Ravens defense, I mean, I know they've only played 2 games to where most teams have already played 3, but just looking at statistics defensively and total offense allowed or total yards allowed, the Ravens have given up the most yards through 2 games this year at 409.5. So they can get thrown on. They can get ran on. This is a team that is beatable, and I think the Lions, they're looking to kind of right the ship from when they were here last time in Baltimore when they lost 38-6 and they got blown out of the water. So I think it's one of those things where Dan Campbell, he circles games like this on the calendar, and he's always trying to get back in these spots. And if you remember last year when they played the 49ers after coming off of that loss in the NFC Championship 2 seasons ago, they definitely wrote that wrong by winning big against San Francisco, and then you see what they did with the Bears last week. So I think that's kind of the mentality here with this offense going into Baltimore tonight.
All right, what about the other side of the ball? Defensively, we saw them get beat up pretty bad by the Green Bay Packers, a little bit of better effort against Chicago. But facing this Baltimore Ravens offense, what have you seen from this Lions defense and what your expectations are for their performance tonight?
Yeah, I think they just, they can't overthink it with Lamar Jackson. You know he's going to run around. He's going to create plays. He's going to make things happen. You know Derrick Henry's going to run the football relatively consistent. Can you shut him down in any sense, in any way? If you can do that, I think obviously that makes things a lot easier for you. And I know that's easier said than done. How they can do that, I mean, they have to get home with their blitzes. It just feels like the Lions are so often getting too cute with having their edge rushers contain or play in a quarterback spy in the middle of the field. There are times where Aiden Hutchinson isn't pinning his ears back and running after the quarterback. He's more in this spy at times, and he's your best pass rusher. Designate him to do that and take another player to spy on Lamar Jackson or watch Derrick Henry. And they've got enough linebackers to do that with Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone. And they've got enough secondary help, whether it be Avonte Maddox, Rocky Sin. Kirby Joseph. The list goes on for this team, and of course Brian Branch as well. So I think there's enough talent defensively where they can really shape this, and they've got more experience now with this roster. When they played 2 years ago, they had a lot of guys that were still new to the NFL, still getting acclimated. They're acclimated now, and maybe the game plan will change and be aggressive, and they'll get home with some of the line stunts and blitzes that they execute tonight.
Talking Monday Night Football with Russell Brown of Betting Pros and Lions Wire, covers the Lions closely. Detroit taking on Baltimore in Baltimore tonight. And so you mentioned earlier this Ravens defense being one that can get thrown on, can get run on. For people that might be looking for some players to target, obviously a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be so popular, but other names that people can look toward in the prop market potentially today?
I love Jameson Williams today. I mean, I know he scored last week, and I know he had a relatively big game, but, he's played in 3 Monday night games. He's got 9 receptions for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. I think that there's a really good chance that he can play up to his potential and beyond. So I really like him tonight. Obviously, there's so much to like with Jahmyr Gibbs. If they can get the ground game going, obviously that helps them in the play-action pass game. There's a lot of dynamic there. And then just on the other side of the football, looking at Baltimore, I know a lot of people will probably have, same game parlays and straight bets with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the ticket. But it's worth noting in the receiving game, Zay Flowers on the other side, 14 receptions on 20 targets. The next closest to him is DeAndre Hopkins with 4 receptions and 4 targets. So Zay Flowers is heavy utilized in the passing attack. He is their number 1 option. So I'll be very curious if DJ Reed plays and Terrion Arnold, do those guys shut Zay Flowers down? Does that open the door for a Tylan Wallace or a Devontae Walker where we get a random anytime touchdown score on the Baltimore Ravens side? It feels like it's very predictable with either Zay Flowers or Henry or Jackson, but maybe you sprinkle a little bit of something on a Rashad Bateman or a Tylan Wallace. Bateman hasn't scored yet this year. He had a big year last year. So I think Baltimore's really sneaky as if they can score, because I know the Lions are going to probably give up a couple of points, as we know with the total and how it's set at 53.5. So not just looking at Lions players, looking at some Ravens players as well, but so much to love with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Russell, great stuff today. We appreciate it. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, you guys do the same. Good luck.
Thank you. Again, follow him at Russ NFL Draft and all of the work over at Betting Pros, Fantasy Pros, Lions Wire. Appreciate the insight there. I was looking at some of the BetMGM data that just came out a moment ago, and it's interesting. And, sometimes it's good to fade the most bet props. He was talking about something on the positive side for Rashad Bateman. Bateman's under 2.5 receptions is the most bet player prop today at BetMGM.
Interesting. I always get interested by how those, why everybody gravitates toward one side or the other when you're looking at that. I will say one of the names, after we watched, I think we were together last week when this went down, Isaac Tesla's ridiculous catch against the Chicago Bears.
That one-handed.
Yep, the dude's explosive. His receiving prop is 15.5. One catch, you can get over that. The reception's interesting, 1.5, shaded to the under -140. He's only had 1 catch in each, but he's pretty explosive in terms of what he could do with the football if he does get that one target. High catch rate and explosiveness at that could go over that with the 1 reception.
I did like Jahmyr Gibbs over his receiving yards today, too, just thinking that could be a potential mismatch with these Ravens linebackers, but it's up to 26.5 right now, and it was 20.5, so makes you like it a little bit less the more that it keeps ticking up. But I do think that there could be something there with Gibbs in the receiving game. It's going to be a fun game tonight. I understand all of the money going toward the over. Based on the BetMGM percentages, at least that I've seen, 81% of the money on the over in that one. And we'll dive deeper into those percentages as well, because obviously up at vsin.com, you've got the DraftKings numbers, you've got the Circa numbers, vsin.com/subscribe. Get in now, $9.99 your first month, always worth a look. We're going to step aside. When we come back, though, wrapping up hour 1 with Call Me Crazy, but overreactions to the weekend or proper reactions to some of the things that we are seeing in the NFL and college football. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Did you know that even though the football season is underway, you can still jump into the VSiN Average Joe contest, sponsored by Edge Boost. Each week, you make 7 picks, NFL or college. The best score each week gets $500. Plus, if you have an Edge Boost account already, that $500 turns into $1,000 each and every week. If that's not enough, there are quarterly prizes too. airfare to Vegas, a free 2-night stay here at Circa Resort and Casino where we're broadcasting from, and your chance to come join us, be on a VSiN show. It's free to play. You can enter anytime. vsin.com/Joe is how you can get more information. That's vsin.com/JOE.
Put on your tinfoil hats.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The whole world gone crazy.
For Call Me Crazy, but...
All right, time for Call Me Crazy, but on this overreaction or proper reaction Monday. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you live from the world's largest sportsbook at Circa. We've got a couple opinions we need to talk through here. And I'm going to start with the Buffalo Bills because while I am aware of their defensive shortcomings, they do have injuries, a couple key players that are on suspension, a couple rookie tackles. I think that side of the ball will work itself out. In the meantime, their offense has been dominant, leads the NFL in yards, total yards per game. They're third in points per game. And if you look at their schedule, call me crazy, but who is going to stop the Buffalo Bills this season? Buffalo is a 15.5-point favorite this week against the Saints. They host the Patriots in Week 5, then at the Falcons before the bye. After the bye, Carolina, Kansas City, we can call their first test, at Miami, the Bucks, Houston, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, Jets. That's their full schedule. This, they could very easily get through October without a loss at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's crazy. I mean, look, you were sending very angry text messages about their most recent game because they almost lost that game with the Miami Dolphins.
Listen, we were very frustrated. It was a survivor play.
Is it you're in your conglomerate?
It was a survivor play. Plus, you don't understand. I'm watching that game Thursday Night Football in the air with the feed glitching like crazy that I had to turn it off, and I'm scoreboard watching. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? But it's their defense, and I think it will work itself out.
Football's a weird sport. We just watched the Browns beat the Packers. I'm not going to say they'll go undefeated, but I agree with your overall premise. If you go back to our futures draft that we had, my last one was Bills ultimate win total over 13.5 because it was just, look, their schedule looks easy. And if, God forbid, the Patriots actually stink, then all of a sudden it's really easy. I would agree overall with that sentiment. Yeah, I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, New England, you can't turn the ball over 5 times against this team because that offense will cash in repeatedly.
I'm not going to talk about that game. It was a very irritating contest. All right, call me crazy, but this is what we're supposed to do, right? Carson Wentz needs to start over J.J. McCarthy. It's what we did with the Colts the last 2 years. This is what we got to do, right? We have a Super Bowl ready roster, and this one, by the way, as much as I am a Colts fan, this one's way more Super Bowl ready than what the Colts were working with the last 2 years and even this year.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz goes out there, 14 to 22 touchdowns, just lets the Ferrari drive down the street. The defense is great. You statistically have one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL who's a rookie sitting behind him. What are we doing? Why are we going to waste time trying to put J.J. McCarthy out there? He gives you your best shot to win. Shouldn't we be doing this? Carson Wentz should be starting over J.J. McCarthy.
I kind of think he should.
There we go.
I get that you're doing the tongue-in-cheek argument thing right now, but I think you put it well. Just let the Ferrari drive itself. Kevin O'Connell, in his post-game, he said he came in and played point guard. He made good decisions. Quote, if he just takes the right footwork, does his job, runs the show, there's always going to be people to get the ball to, which is something J.J. McCarthy has not shown that he can do with the exception of one quarter of football.
That part is not Kevin O'Connell's quote, by the way.
What wasn't?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying because you never ended the quote,
Sorry.
so I just want to let people know that is Stormy now adding on to that.
My B, yes. Now I'm freelancing. I'm getting wild.
That was editorialization. Yeah.
But I kind of think you have a veteran in the room.
Yep.
It makes sense.
I'm telling you, I actually think it's kind of dumb that we do this every time because I actually still would agree with the premise of you got to find out at some point what you have with J.J. McCarthy.
Sure.
But Carson Wentz, at least, again, can get the ball snapped to him. There was procedural issues. There were so many different things. He throws to the left side of the field. That's also something that kind of works for your offense every once in a while. I don't know if Carson Wentz is the best quarterback ever, but if we were going to do this with Joe freaking Flacco, then we better do this with Carson Wentz, considering how solid it looked last week.
I would say, and I'm being dead serious with this, let's see what it looks like the next couple weeks against the Steelers and Browns. And if they're 3-0 with Carson Wentz and the offense is lighting it up after the bye week. Do you really go back to J.J. McCarthy right away, or do you stick with the guy who got you there? So I don't know. It'll be an interesting conversation. Call me crazy, but you're not going to win games with a bad offensive line. This is baffling to me. That teams in the NFL do not seem to want to invest in their front, and I'm not just coming at this from the standpoint of protecting your biggest and best asset, which is 100% true, but that is the key to establishing your offense. Give your quarterback time, create holes for your running backs. Have we learned nothing from the Giants, who have been trying to figure out their offensive line for the last decade plus and have done nothing but lose football games? CJ Stroud, I mentioned this earlier, is never going to be rookie CJ Stroud behind this offensive line. The Bengals, even with Joe Burrow, no matter how great he is, they're never going to be championship caliber if you can't figure out the offensive line. And look at some of these teams: the Raiders, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Steelers. Are you sensing a theme? Like, come on, what are we doing? I just don't understand how you do not have that part of your team figured out.
I would generally agree. I think that there's an argument to be made that when you're talking about the draft in certain situations, you value other positions over offensive line. But at the end of the day, at some point, you've got to be able to develop talent there. And in free agency, maybe go find some guys, especially when you're talking about teams that, like the Texans. It's amazing how you watched what transpired for that team last year and still allowed this offensive line to decay. And, going into last weekend, I was reading an article from some Texans blog, right, or whatever it was. But the headline was like, Laramie Tunsil's first 2 games make it seem like it was the right move to let him go. And I was like, you should probably watch your team, buddy, because it's been awful to watch. So I would agree with you. Outside of just getting these guys gun shy and getting hurt and all of those things, you just can't operate your offense if your quarterback is constantly moving off of his spot to extend plays because he's being pressured.
All right, what do you have next?
All right, this is totally unbiased. Call me crazy, but the Colts might win the most games in the regular season. They're 25-1 to do so. Now, in seriousness, it's kind of the same thing that you just went through with the Buffalo Bills. The AFC South looks like it might suck outside of Indianapolis. We only have 3 games to work with, but still, Titans look really bad, and especially on defense and some of their execution. The Texans, as we've mentioned multiple times now in the show, offensive line's abysmal. The offense is one of the worst in the NFL. They stink, whatever it is. The Jags look fine. They get by the Houston Texans. They blow the game against the Bengals. They beat up on the Panthers. Just whatever. They look like an AFC South team that's destined to finish with like 8 or 9 wins, maybe. If the Colts offense is going to be this good, statistically the best offense in the NFL right now by EPA standards, Danny Dimes has been fine. He hasn't been dynamic, but still top 15, top 10 quarterback in the NFL, depending on what metric you use. In a bad division with an easy schedule, I don't know if they're the best team in the NFL in terms of power rating, but in terms of record, would it really be that crazy if this team is competing for the top seed in the AFC?
It would be fun.
Right?
Yeah, I understand the argument. And speaking of offensive lines, Daniel Jones has only been sacked twice, fewest in the league. This was another interesting stat for your team I thought was interesting, because I know how much you love the punt stat, but I'm going to make it better for you. The Colts have combined for just 1 punt and turnover this season.
Yep.
Fewest over any 3-game span for any team since 1950.
I mean,
it's like, how much of this is sustainable? I do question, but it has been an awesome start for them, and it looks right, which actually, JVT, leads me to my next one. Call me crazy, but coaching freaking matters. And whatever Shane Steichen's witchcraft and wizardry has done to set up Daniel Jones for success is very clearly working. And I think of it not just in the context of the Indianapolis Colts, which, by the way, Steichen plus 380 now for Coach of the Year. But I think even to last night, yesterday afternoon, rather, with the Chargers and Broncos game. Like, if Brandon Staley is the head coach of the Chargers, I'm not sure they win that game. But things come together with Jim Harbaugh and what he's been doing with that group. There's so many instances where I look around the NFL. Pay attention to who the head coach is, because that's going to matter.
If the Chargers and the Colts both finish with 11-ish wins and win their divisions, whatever, one seed be damned, they're just there. Who would you think the media would respect more in terms of Coach of the Year?
I think Steichen, because the Colts have been in such a hole.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to be curious to see if it falls that way, because, excuse me, I'm joking my spit. It's a good poll by you, looking at the Coach of the Year market and how much he's risen, because he's done a brilliant job. And part of the reason why they've cut down on these turnovers, and Daniel Jones has not committed a turnover-worthy play, is because of the way they've been running this offense. You want one more? Or are we up against it?
Hit it.
Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we don't have time for this one. Ashton Genty might not rush for like 700 yards.
Speaking of offensive lines.
It's bad, dude. This was a historically bad running game last year, and it looks abysmal so far this year.
Dude, and I know we talked about it on the air yesterday. There's still hope for my touchdowns prop for the season, but the yardage, no, it's not coming together. But again, that goes back to the point, like, fronts are critical, and theirs is bad. And how many times has Geno Smith been sacked now? They can't do anything. All right, we got to step aside. When we come back, resetting with hour 2 of the program, there are a lot of marquee names that got injured yesterday. We will break it down and more coming up after this.